Hello, my name is Deanna Hamlin. I am the librarian at Carver Elementary School in Henrico County, and my presentation is on PBL. And the first thing we might say to ourselves is why? PBL, why? And so I'm here to say why not? And we're going to talk a little bit about PBL, and some of you might have felt like this is like a buzzword and the latest thing. And we're just going to walk through some of those anxieties and stresses that might come along with thinking about PBL and looking at it and wondering, is it really right for me? Is it really right for my kids? So I'm going to start off by sharing my information. Let me move myself over a little bit for now. Again, my name is Deanna Hamlin, and here is my contact email. And I will also give you that at the end of the presentation as well. So I'm going to start with a quote. And the quote is by Brene Brown. And I'll have to admit, I went down a rabbit hole on Brene Brown just starting out working on this presentation, but I love this quote. You can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you cannot choose both. So that really spoke to me as far as thinking through PBL, whether I wanted to try to tackle it at my school, what it was going to look like, because I think we all get in our comfort zones, and it is not easy to break out of those comfort zones. So this is going to be also a little bit of discussion about a little bit of psychology. My undergrad studies were psychology and sociology majors. So I think that kind of bleeds into, my educational overview as well. So just hang in there with me. So I love that quote. You can choose courage. You can choose comfort, but you cannot choose both. All right, so moving on, we might all wonder, what exactly is PBL? I think we hear the terminology thrown around a lot, but PBL, in my own words, kind of a mesh of some different definitions that I found. PBL is an ongoing student project. So students are using their prior knowledge and they're working to solve a real world problem. And through collaboration, students demonstrate their solution through a public product or presentation. So right there, we see a lot of key ingredients in PBL. They're using prior knowledge. It's real world. It is global. It's a problem that students are working to solve together through collaboration. And they are also working together to demonstrate and share their solution. So that is my overriding definition of PBL. All right, so what PBL is not, and I think there is some confusion about PBL. PBL is not a dessert project. A dessert project would be, things that we've grown up with, things that are still being used. A dessert project is a project that is assigned just for students at the end of their learning to show what they've learned. So that's a dessert project. And I want to stop a minute right here to give credit to PBL Works. And you'll see the link. I'm going to share this slideshow with you as well afterwards. You'll see this link to this idea in PBL Works, and you can actually go in and take the quiz to see if you really understand clearly what PBL is. They're going to ask you some situations. They're going to ask you, do you consider this a PBL or do you consider this a dessert project? And they're going to give you scenarios, and you're going to have to guess which is which. So it's very interesting to see if you really, as I took the quiz as well, if we are really under the clear understanding of what a PBL really is. And let me just pause. I meant to do this at the beginning, but I have to give credit to PBL Works. I was able to, through Henrico County, was able to attend a workshop with PBL Works with some other colleagues. And I will say, if you ever have the opportunity to do that, please, please do. It is a wonderful workshop. Now, I have to admit, I attended the workshop after I had done my first PBL. So it's all about learning and growing. And I've emailed the people at PBL Works before my presentation to ask, what they give me permission to share. And they are just an open book. And they were so kind. And they said, please, refer to us, use whatever you find, and, share with everyone. So I have to give a shout out to PBL Works, and it's done through the Buck Institute. So I can't give them credit enough. The amazing amount of resources they have given teachers is unbelievable. So please, please take a look at that when you're done with this, if you are interested in beginning a PBL. All right, so why PBL? And these are reasons given through PBL Works. They are reasons, I'm also, I think at the end, giving credit to Edutopia from an article I read there. And actually, it's just what we all know is best for our students. So PBL is huge in student engagement. Students are in control of their own learning, and we know as educators how important that is for students to have choice in their learning. It goes hand in hand with how engaged they're going to be. PBL connects students in meaningful ways to global issues, and that's what we're all trying to do with our students now, aren't we? We're trying to connect globally, get them to be thinkers, and it gives them a buy-in to their community and the real world, and that is very important these days. It teaches personal and social responsibility to the students. They take ownership in what they are creating, and that's very important. So some skills, it necessitates planning upon the part of the students, critical thinking, reasoning, and creativity. It builds their communication skills, and their final project, they are going to share that final project with peers and hopefully with the community or even beyond your local community. And that is just so important for students. They have to practice these skills to get better at them. So communication skills. And again, I'll go back to the student choice in project topic and presentation. Huge, huge, huge student buy-in, their choice, their voice, so important. And students reach audiences beyond their school community. And I'll show you some examples of that in a few minutes. And it goes in directions sometimes you have no idea it's going to go in. And that's a beautiful thing when it just organically evolves. They retain the subject matter that they've learned better because it is something that becomes personal to them. And we all want that. We all want them to grow and learn and build on that knowledge base. And it exposes students to adults outside of the school community, to businesses, to careers. And we'll look at that when we get into and the idea of inviting experts into your classroom or library. The more, I'm just under the belief that the more students can meet these professionals and the more they can have conversations with them, just the wider their world opens up. And it doesn't have to be in person. We are living right this minute when I'm recording this in a virtual world. We have so many opportunities out there to call in experts virtually and have them come into our classrooms and speak to our students. So those are just a few of the reasons why I cannot deny that PBL, I think, is really important and will just build on the student's wealth of knowledge. So to go along with that, we have to be realistic, and we have to realize that there are roadblocks. And some of these roadblocks we have set in our own minds, and I'm right there with you. And some of the roadblocks are set by challenges that we have that are beyond our control. We think they're beyond our control, but maybe sometimes they're within our control. So let's look at a few of these roadblocks. So the first thing that comes to mind, and that is why I looked into Brene Brown a little bit before working on this PBL workshop that I'm doing, is we're uncertain. Sometimes we have uneasiness about teaching in a non-traditional manner. It's kind of stretching us outside of our comfort zone. It is creating, we have to be a little bit vulnerable, and we do not like being vulnerable. So we're going to touch on one other thing from Brene Brown in just a few minutes. So it's kind of like forcing us outside of our comfort zone. And we usually don't like being pushed outside of our comfort zone. It's also, we are going to have to relinquish a little bit of control. You are allowing your students more independence in their own learning. And sometimes, librarians, it's a little bit different. We have a little bit more flexibility in that. Classroom teachers, it really makes them, and we understand why. Most of us have been classroom teachers, but it's going to take a little flexibility and allow student independence, which sometimes we're not so crazy about. Planning time. When am I going to have the time to plan all this? This is overwhelming. I just can't do it. I can't get to it. So I know that's an obstacle as well. We have more and more demands placed on us and less time to do it. So planning time, I know, is a roadblock and an issue. And then, how long is this project going to go on? How long can I really afford to give time to this project to allow students to finish the project? How much time am I going to have to allow them to really create and explore and develop their project? Do I have time to do this? Do I have time to start it? Am I going to have all this mess in my library forever? I just don't know if I can deal with that. So those are a few of the roadblocks. And then there still is a little bit of a concern. Is it really going to, teach them or, let them learn what they need to know for their testing, that they have to take on these subjects? So I understand these are all, little flags going off in our head about PBL when we think about diving into PBL. And here's the big one. Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose control in my library. I'm going to lose control. The students are going to be everywhere. They're going to be wanting to do this, and they're all going to be wanting to do different things. And, I like calm in my library. So am I going to be able to handle that loss of control that I feel that I have the need for? All right, so we're going to end this portion with a quote from Brene Brown. We must be guardians of spaces that allow students to breathe, be curious, and to explore. And just a little background on Brene Brown. She is a social worker. She is a research social worker, and I'm going to give a link to just one of her videos. You can go down the whole rabbit hole, Brene Brown rabbit hole, like I did. But at the end of the whole presentation, I'm going to give links to just one video that she does for educators on vulnerability. And so I think as librarians, we have opportunity to do some things that maybe classroom teachers don't. And so take advantage of that opportunity in your space, in your library space. Now, I'm talking pre and post COVID times. We don't know what that space is going to look like during COVID times. So just know that I'm not speaking to the moment right now, but the picture afterwards. So guardians of spaces that allow students to breathe, to be curious, and to explore. So just think about that. Is that how your feelings are about your library? Is it a space that allows students to be curious? Is it a space that allows students to explore? Because I feel moving forward, and I know we are facing a lot of constraints around that sometimes, but moving forward, that is the progression of what we all want our libraries to be. We want them to be learning commons where students can be curious. They can breathe. It is a safe place for them to explore. and for us to help them on that path as they do those things. So that is, I believe, the first portion. I didn't want to go too long into that first portion, but more the philosophy behind PBL. Hopefully, maybe you are thinking about if you can see it working in your space. I know deep down we all know that this PBL idea is what's best for student learning and what's best for kids. It's how we learn, through exploration, exploring things that are of interest to us. And so the next video will go into just an example of one PBL that I've done at Carver. And I am not coming to you as an expert, because in all honesty, I am just, coming up with the courage. I guess courage is a lot of something that Brene Brown talks a lot about too. So I am not coming to you as an expert. I am just developing this courage within myself to kind of let go and let these things flow organically in my library. So it's just more about the philosophy of PBL and being vulnerable as a librarian to open yourself up to that. So we're going to end this first part right here. And when we come back, we're going to discuss just one example of a PBL, working PBL, my first attempt at PBL. So a lot of things to learn from that. So thank you for listening.